letting go of the desire. In Buddhism, the first noble truth is that life is suffering. And the second noble truth is that the cause of suffering is desire, craving, to be more precise. Now, that doesn't mean that life is bad, that life is bound to be riddled with pain. What the Buddha meant when he said that life was suffering is that we are stuck in this wheel of life and death, and we are bound to leave this cycle of life and death until we let go of the desire and reach what we call in Buddhism nirvana, the end of suffering. When the Buddha said that life is suffering, he didn't mean it exactly this way. This is a loose translation from the Pali Sanskrit to English or any of our modern languages. What he meant by life is suffering is more closer to something like this. Life is unfulfilling, unsatisfactory. Life is stress. Life is frustration. Why? Because we are all subject to the laws of conditions, mind and matter. What will come to exist will come to pass. So what you see now, what you think you have now, will ultimately disappear. And our attachment to what we have, to who we are, to our identity, to our life, etc., will cause us only suffering because we cling to something that does not last, that is ephemeral, short-lived, and transient. Now, I'm digressing a little bit to make a point. That doesn't mean that we have to live a life void of desire, especially if you're not a monk. If your goal right now is to reach enlightenment, then by all means, you will have to let go of the concept of desire even more so than anybody in this world. But I don't think that most of my listeners and myself who are striving to reach enlightenment. So why should we let go of the desire if our goal is not enlightenment? Well, desire brings about suffering. That is true. What I like about David Hawkins in his book Letting Go, the great late David Hawkins, that he pointed out exactly why desire is a problem, especially when it comes to manifesting the life we want, what we want, and manifesting everything we can dream about and more. Because desire too often means that we lack something, almost all the time. When we desire something, especially when we have a deep yearning and a strong craving for something, we are telling the universe, we're telling God, whatever you want to call it, the infinite intelligence, that we do not have it. And not only that, our emotion often will make us feel at first a bit of excitement, maybe ecstasy, maybe arousal. However, if this desire is not fulfilled quickly, we will then feel frustration. We will then feel lack, maybe anger, negativity, doubts, fear, etc., etc., and all that good stuff, quote unquote, obviously. Because a desire that is not fulfilled quickly will make us suffer. If we know for a fact that this desire will be fulfilled, then there is no negative emotion, there's only anticipation. However, the only certain thing about life is that life is uncertain. So this anticipation can quickly become a strong expectation and therefore lead to frustration and all the things I've mentioned just a few moments ago. When you read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, the first chapter is having a burning desire. Now, having a burning desire is good to begin with, because oftentimes, if you really see people around you, even celebrities, let's take celebrities for an example. When you see a person like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, they have a burning desire to win. And obviously, Kobe Bryant is not with us anymore. May he rest in peace. Michael Jordan, thankfully, is still with us. We would have to talk to them directly to understand if this burning desire was something that actually made them happy. Now, Kobe Bryant has more of a Zen attitude when it comes to this, and I think we should take him more of an example than, let's say, Michael Jordan. And for those of you who have watched the great documentary, The Last Dance, you can see that his burning desire a lot of times made him suffer more than perhaps he should have. Now, of course, I'm not saying that burning desire was the only thing that led him to suffer. I think celebrity, the fame, and the adulation from the crowd and the great fame he had at the time was not easy to deal with, of course. But I'm trying to make a point here that a burning desire is not something that is bad if you know how to deal with it. And I'm not criticizing Think and Grow Rich by all means. I think it's a great book, but I think there's a better way of going about it. And I think even Napoleon Hill knew about this, but he didn't necessarily formulate the way to deal with a burning desire in the best form he could have done, or at least not as well as some other of his contemporaries and some other authors who have come after him. Remember, Think and Grow Rich is quite an old book. It's about, if I'm not mistaken, 50 to 60, 70 years old maybe. There are other people who have made his teachings more in tune with perhaps our modern times. Maybe my understanding at that time, if I had read this book 70 years ago, if I was alive, might have been different. This is an interpretation of 2021, right? We have different way of thinking. The game, quote unquote, evolves. Our way of thinking evolves, and obviously the world evolves. So maybe now is a time where we need more of letting go instead of pushing, right? So desire leads to frustration and lack and all the stuff I mentioned before. Now, I'm being repetitive and a bit redundant because I'm trying to make a point. So what can we do about desire? Well, if you read the teachings of Neville Goddard say that you have to claim the unseen as seen, which means that if you claim something to be seen, even if it's not right now something that you or anybody else can see in this world. Remember, the world we see around us is an illusion, it's a dream. Because we cannot function outside of our consciousness. So what we see is something we see in our consciousness. What we see with our eyes is just mind and matter, particles, atoms. And if you were to see even something that seems solid, and even if you see with a microscope, you would see it was just energy and atoms coupled together. It would not even be matter, it would be like energy that is moving so fast that it makes it seem and feel like it's solid. A matrix, if you will. But this obviously is a subject for another day. That's not very important, nor is it really relevant to this discussion. But it had to be said. When you're when you claim, something unseen as it is seen, you already have it. There's nothing to strive for you already have it. What I mean by that, Neville Goddard talks about persistent assumption. What is a persistent assumption? A persistent assumption is, first of all, assuming that what you want in the future is something you already have right now. You do this by virtue of visualizing, thinking the thoughts that you would think if you already have what you wanted to have, if you already had your wish fulfilled. Visualization, scripting, affirmations, all this good stuff. No matter what technique you are trying right now, no matter what technique you are thinking of trying to incorporate in your life, that is an assumption. Why? Because you assume you already have. When you write an affirmation, when you script, when you visualize, when you are grateful for something that has not come yet, but you are grateful for it because you feel that you already have it right now, you're assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You're assuming that you are already in possession of whatever you desire. And therefore, because the wish has already been fulfilled, the desire, the lack of it, does not exist anymore. If you were right now to have a desire for whatever, maybe to buy a clothing item, let's say something you have been waiting for a long time, it's Christmas time and you want to buy yourself a gift, and it's something you have been saving up for, and maybe you have been saving up for 2-3 months. You know for a fact that you're going to have it, right? There's more certainty there. Obviously, life is not certain. A lot of things could happen between the moment you desire to have it and the moment you decide to buy it. But there's more certainty in there because you have planned, you have saved the money, you know. It's more quote-unquote realistic. What happens when you buy it? Well, you bought it. Now, you have it. You have the happiness of having, the fulfillment of having it. There's no desire anymore because this desire has been fulfilled. Then that's what you should do. When you want something, you picture yourself as having it. As David Hawkins would say, you picture it lovingly. You picture it in a way that makes you feel good. You don't picture it as if you were dreaming of something you don't have. You picture yourself having it. That's a huge difference. This is not wishful thinking. You're not daydreaming about something that, oh my God, I wish I could have. No. You're picturing yourself, scripting yourself, affirming yourself as if you already have it. So when you do it, and when you do it without the distraction of the conscious mind, and you imprint the subconscious mind, then in your imagination, and remember, for those of you who are familiar with Neville Goddard, imagination is God, literally. Your wonderful human imagination is God. And if you have heard some of the teachings of Abraham Hicks, she said in a different way that we should not give so much credence to what we see in our 3D reality. 3D reality is a term from Neville Goddard, but it applies here. We should not give so much credence to what we see. So when we do our affirmations, our scripting, our visualization, we live in the world of our imagination. And the more we do this and the more we feel natural about it, the more we understand, and the better we become at this, the more we understand that the world we see around us is just a reflection of our human imagination. Therefore, what was in the 4D has become the 3D dimension, the one you and other people can see. But if you can see the unseen and see things in your mind, in your human imagination, that people around you cannot see, that's how things come about. And for that to come about, you have to persist in this assumption that you have it. Why you have to persist? Because your eyes, your senses will deny that your desire has already been fulfilled. Persistent assumption is nothing more, nothing less than letting go of the desire. When you let go of the desire, you do not feel like you need it. Every time you're affirming, every time you're flipping your thoughts from negative to positive, you are living in the end. Living in the end means living as if you already have the wish fulfilled. Now, it's not something you have to do all the time, obviously, but it is something that you should cultivate as much as possible, especially when you have negative thoughts and negative emotions. And what I mean by that is negative emotions that are contradictory to the wish fulfilled. So if I were right now to live in the end of, let's say, being with my specific person, I would think thoughts, I would dream images and visualize images of us being together right now. But let's say I go about my day and I fear and I doubt. Well, if this fear is not strong, I would just flip my thoughts and just affirm in my mind that we are together. Or maybe if I have time, I will write down a script of us being together. And even if I had even more time, I would visualize ourselves being together. Now, if this pass, if those emotions will pass because they are not so strong, then it's all good. However, sometimes we have strong emotions, strong negative emotion. And sometimes those strong emotions can lead us to spiral down a rabbit hole of negative thoughts and overwhelm. Sometimes, as Abraham Hicks would recommend, it is better to distract yourself, take a nap, and when you wake up, start again the process of letting go, affirming, visualizing, meditating, whatever the case may be, or a mixture of all of this. If you're good at meditating, if you have been familiar with meditating, you can just sit down and let it go. The important thing to understand is, and I digress, this is a subject for another day, but it is important to mention, at least briefly, when you are overwhelmed with emotion, it's important not to beat yourself up and not to force your way out of it, not using willpower and force to push away or repress that emotion. Allow it to be. Try your best not to label it and let it be, which pretty much means surrendering and letting go. And by that, I mean more specifically, not labeling your emotion. Distracting yourself from your thought by just being in the moment and being with the sensation, because fear will manifest itself in the body. When you have negative thoughts will lead to negative emotions. What I'm trying to say is when you have negative emotions, you can flip them. And if you catch them at the beginning, it's easier to avoid the negative emotion that would certainly come if you keep on spiraling on negative thoughts. So if you catch those negative thoughts earlier, you won't have these negative emotions and sensations and feelings. However, we're human, so it's not necessarily easy to always be disciplined 100% of the time. Now, with practice and cultivation of the mind, you will get better and you will become much more effortless. However, we're still human, so every now and then we have emotions that are triggered by outside circumstances, by people, by things we've seen, things that have conditioned us to trigger. And when this happens, it's important to just allow the emotion to be. And by allowing this emotion to be, what you resist persists. And when you're not resisting, there's nothing to be persisted upon. So by letting it happen, by not persisting to resist, it fades. Now, it will fade quickly the first time you do it. The second time it will fade even quicker. It doesn't mean that it will not come. Some emotion will come back, but you're much more able to cope with it. And the emotion would not be as intense. And some emotions, some negative feeling will be gone forever. That's very important to do. But I digress. But that's an important point to make. And I will keep talking about this in on my video, on my podcast. Okay, back to the desire. So Abraham Hicks said that we should not give so much credence to the world we see around us, the world we see and the world other people see. We have to make our vision dominant. If we look around, if we do our affirmations, and even if we feel good, if we do our scripting and visualization. And remember, when you do all those stuff, it is important to be as calm, as peaceful as possible. Usually you do this before sleep or in the morning, because that's the time where you feel the calmest. And the best way to do this, especially in the morning, especially when you're not doing it before sleep, or even if you can do it before sleep, meditate before. Why? Because you want to shut down the conscious mind and shut down the senses. So the more the conscious mind is, how should I put it? Shut, yes, shut. The more you'll be able to let everything you visualize impress the subconscious mind. That is very important. So if you are busy, distracted by thoughts and stuff like this during the day, you won't be able to do your scripting and visualization as efficiently as if you were to meditate before, or do it in the morning when you wake up, and or at night before you fall asleep. That's very important to note. Back to the subject. You have to be persistent and make your vision dominant. Abraham Hicks said that you have to make your vision dominant. Neville Goddard said you have to persist in this assumption that your wish has been fulfilled, which pretty much means in both cases that you have to persist in letting go of your desire. And as I said, you persist in that by not craving, because craving is lacking. Craving can bring excitement at the beginning, but it will lead only to craving, to more craving. So when you persist as if you already had it, there's nothing to crave because you already have it. Conor McGregor, the MMA superstar, is a very, very good practitioner of the law of attraction. Before he won one of his belts, I think it was his second belt. Oh, sorry, the first the first featherweight belt in the UFC. And he was on his rise. He was already quite a big star in the world, and especially in the UFC and the MMA world. And he said in an interview before he won the belt, he's like, I already have the belt. I don't need anything. I already know I have it. I feel like I have it. I don't need anything. And I strongly recommend to you guys to go check videos of Conor McGregor. I made one in my channel, but it's an old one. You can go check it out. But I strongly recommend you go check his videos on the law of attraction. It's very powerful. And for those of you who are not familiar with the law of attraction, you might think that what he said was counterintuitive, counterproductive. But if you understand what I'm trying to convey right now, you will understand that this is exactly how you should feel. To be able to understand that the world you imagine is real. The world you imagine is even more real than what you see in your 3D, because what you see right now is the result of what you have seen in your imagination before, because you can do it deliberately. And that's what we should all do. We should take command of our minds and imagination to create exactly what we want, instead of letting circumstances, limiting beliefs, and our reactions, negative reaction, impress the subconscious mind with something we don't want to have in our lives, because that's what is happening. So take control of your imagination. And remember, persist. The persistence will make it more and more natural. And at one point, your imagination will take over. What I mean by that is what you feel, see in your imagination will come to you as natural. And you will not, as Abraham Hicks would say, give so much credence to the 3D. So even if the 3D reality, the things you see and other people see in this life, in this reality, quote unquote, seem to be contradictory, or because things have not happened for you yet, the wish fulfilled is not something you can see with your eyes right now, you will not give so much credence to it, and you will not react negatively to it because your desire has already been fulfilled. You feel natural about it. And that's why the persistent assumption is very important. Letting go of the desire as much as possible is the key. And you will see with time, letting go of the desire and wanting for nothing, because you know you already have everything, you have imagined everything you want, will come much more effortlessly and much easier. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any question, please let me know. I'm Sebastian. I'm a coach, mindset coach, meditation coach, manifestation coach. My information is in the description box below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon.